Unite beyond boundaries. Innovate together. Joe's PANKRATION 2024. No border.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Hi everyone. Thanks for having me today. Uh, in these sessions, I was speaking about multi-cluster security with network firewall, consistent protection for distributed EKS. My name is Ananda, and I'm AWS Container Hero. And key takeaways for these sessions consist of three. First, we will understand the challenge of standalone Kubernetes cluster and why we need to why we need to build multi-cluster Kubernetes on Amazon EKS. And then we will explore the challenge of securing multi-cluster Amazon EKS and learn how network firewall can provide consistent protection across multi-cluster Amazon EKS. And here the diagram that we will talk in these sessions. Yeah, it consists of two Kubernetes cluster built on top of Amazon EKS, and we are deploying network firewall for protect incoming and outgoing traffic for ingress and egress. We deploy behind NAT gateway for egress and before ELB for ingress to filtering out the traffic incoming and outgoing for Amazon guys. And yeah, this is the agenda, the challenge, multi-cluster, challenge of securing, and AWS network firewall. And then the challenge of standalone Kubernetes cluster. First is scalability and flexibility. So when we are deploying a standalone Kubernetes cluster, when our business expand and we need to consider about multi-cluster, and then in some cases when our business expand in another region or yeah another account is and then we need to consider that, oh yeah, at the time we need to deploy multi-cluster Kubernetes. And then the second one is availability and resource utilizations. So means that when we are deploying the node group, we know that there is a limitations that per node group we only have the maximum is 100 VM EC2. And then the third one is workload isolations. So it means that we need to probably we consider to securing using a network policy or the other things like RBAC to filtering and to securing that who will have permissions in this resource in this cluster. And then the fourth one for security and compliance. So it means that if we have a considering of okay uh to make sure that the risk is lower and then we can mitigate and one of the cluster is down, we may need to consider to build a multi-cluster Kubernetes also. Or yeah, if there is any consideration things like the saturations that I mentioned before. So yeah, that's why we need to build the multi-cluster of Kubernetes cluster. Actually, multi-cluster is not mandatory. I mean, by default, we can build a single cluster also, but we will get a lot of benefit when we are deploying a multi-cluster rather than a standalone one. And yeah, that's why we may need to consider from the beginning when we deploying uh, or we creating the architecture diagram at that time we may need to consider with this diagram, is it possible to build multi-cluster in the future? Probably we may need to deploy multi control plane or only multi-class single control plane with the multi node group in separate regions. So many architecture diagram that we can consider to build of this multi-cluster Kubernetes. And yeah, what we want to achieve about this multi-cluster to address that management, availability, scalability, security, privacy, compliance for data sovereignty requirements. So that those things that we want to achieve, why we need to build multi-cluster Kubernetes on top of Amazon EKS. Okay, actually based on my diagram, I put in single regions only. For example, in Singapore regions, but you may need to consider in separate region also. That one is possible also. So yeah, it depends on your own. And then yeah, so what is a multi-cluster Amazon EKS? First, centralized management. So we may have multiple business that we need to put in separate node group or cluster, but we want to manage it centralized. So yeah, for example, we have a single control plane with multiple data plane node group, and then improve scalability. We may need to avoid disruption when one of the region goes down. So yeah, we creating a disaster recovery plan. That's why we build a multi-cluster Amazon EKS. Then enhance resilience, isolation and fault tolerance. That one that I mentioned before. Flexibility across environment. For example, we may need to build multiple node group like using Red Hat or using Ubuntu in separate cluster. That one is possible also. So there is no restrictions, or we will get a benefit of flexibility when we build a multi-cluster Kubernetes, especially on top of Amazon EKS. And yeah, the challenge, okay, so when we are deploying multi-cluster, there are several challenges that we may facing at that time. So what what should we do? First, complexity. Managing security policy for each EKS cluster separately can lead to inconsistency. I mean, like, for example, in this diagram, we may need to limit our traffic for incoming and outgoing through the internet. But how about the traffic between two separate clusters? Those clusters we put in private subnet, right? But then how we limit that and like how the configuration that we should put there, and yeah, to avoid like which IP, which network that we need to limit, and will filtering out between two separate clusters. And the second one is limited visibility. Monitoring network traffic across distributed cluster is difficult, hindering threat detection and response. Yeah, because those cluster we put in private subnet, and we want to put in centralized management also. So we may need to consider other tools that we can put to monitor the traffic, like VPC. We can enable like VPC flow log, and so on and so on. And then increase management overhead. Manually handling security policy across cluster can be time consuming and prone to error. I mean, like, yeah, we may need to put RBAC for network policy, but how about the network policy between each of the cluster itself? That we may need to consider also. The fourth one is inconsistent enforcement. It can be hard to consistently apply security policy across multiple clusters without a central approach. Yeah, we may need to use automation tools also to build or to apply the consistent uh, the works policy that we between each of the cluster, because if we put the wrong policy, each of cluster will unable to communicate each other. Yeah. So what is AWS Network Firewall is? Uh, First is AWS Network Firewall, stateful, manage firewall and intrusion detection and prevention IDS IPS service. The second one is filters incoming and outgoing traffic at the VPC perimeter. So there, when we are going to AWS Network Firewall dashboard, we can configure first the AWS Network Firewall itself. Then we can attach the network firewall to specific VPC and subnet. We may configure the first uh, AWS Network Firewall for incoming. So we put in uh, public subnet, and then the second AWS Network Firewall we can put in private subnet, and then we can configure the policy, and then we can put the role group, like for example Surikata role we can put there, and then we can put the specific port that allowed for incoming or outgoing traffic. And yeah, offers granular control with custom security policy. So yeah, five five rules that we can configure there, that it offers granular control with custom security policy. Yeah, for example, is Surikata. And then integrate with AWS Firewall Manager for centralized policy management. So there are three deployment model that we can configure for uh, AWS Network Firewall inside of our multi-cluster uh, Kubernetes. First is distributed. Currently, for east-west VPC to VPC traffic flow is not supported yet, but we can consider using centralized deployment model when we are considering about east-west traffic, or we can use combine for north-south VPC to internet traffic flow for outgoing traffic. Those three deployment model are supported. And then north-south VPC to on-prem via VPN or direct connect traffic flow for this distributed currently is now supported. And for prerequisite that we need to configure, we may need to taking note, or yeah, doing something before deploying AWS Network Firewall. First, for distributed is AWS Network Firewall subnet, and then for centralized AWS for inspection VPC and AWS Transit Gateway. For combine, yeah, so for centralized, we need to like transit gateway attachment.
1 minute left.
Okay, and then for combined, AWS Network Firewall, subnet in each protected VPC, inspection VPC, and AWS Transit Gateway. Yeah, this one for centralized management through AWS Firewall Manager, centralized through single instance of AWS Network Firewall. And then for source IP visibility, distributed configuration dependent, centralized yes, component configuration dependent. Misconfiguration risk and potential blast radius, lowest, medium, and low. So here are the costs for three deployment model. Yes, this security approach, we can configure a network policy and AWS Network Firewall. Implementation, filter outgoing, subnet filtering application, and allow rule based on SNI. Okay, so thank you so much for having me today. Bye bye.